Ah, yes. Welcome to SatireAIzed, the only place where culinary chaos pairs perfectly with a man casually chain-loading cigarettes straight into his lungs like he's trying to speed-run emphysema. Settle in, steel your stomach, and subscribe so you never miss a single puff of madness or a single masterpiece of street food disaster. Ah, yes. Behold the Gutter Gourmet Deluxe, handcrafted with the precision of someone who has declared total war on hygiene and visual dignity. It begins with a scoop of mystery mash slapped onto leaves like he's serving offerings at a shrine dedicated to salmonella. Then the blue-shirted sorcerer steps in, plunging his hands, coated in a geological sample of dirt, dough, dust, and possibly ancient spores, straight into the bowl. Every squeeze leaves a new fingerprint of despair. Next comes the brown sludge pour, a stream so ominous it looks like it escaped from a sewer documentary. It coats the mixture like a curse, sealing in whatever bacteria we're still trying to escape. Then a fistful of onions, shredded directly over the bowl with hands that look like they've been marinating in compost for 3 days. More stirring, more grabbing, more artisan contact. By this point, the dish looks like a landfill trying to cosplay as food. And the grand finale? He takes a handful of crusty bread pieces, crushes them with fingers that could sandpaper granite, and drops them in like seasoning from a medieval torture chamber. The sauce he adds on top glistens with an unnatural shine, as if even the sun refuses to reflect off it. A squeeze of lemon finishes it, not for flavor, but to disinfect his own hand mid-service. This isn't street food. This is culinary Russian roulette, and every bite is a loaded chamber. Step aside, Gordon Ramsay, because this culinary war crime makes Hell's Kitchen look like a spa retreat. We open with a cauldron so ancient and burnt it could have been dug out of a volcano. Into this relic he pours water, then oil, then a stream of yellow sludge that looks like it was siphoned straight out of a mythical creature's sinus cavity. Then comes the onion apocalypse, an entire bucket dumped in like he's trying to summon a tear-powered deity. He follows it with a blast of radioactive red powder that turns the whole cauldron into liquid danger. Potatoes crash in like asteroid debris, and finally some brave guy dumps in raw meat with the ceremonial seriousness of feeding a dragon. The brew bubbles like a demon hot tub trying to escape. And just when your stomach thinks it survived the worst, he whips out the royal chamber pot rice cooker. Because yes, the rice is cooked separately in a vessel shaped exactly like a Victorian urinal. They fill it with water, set it on fire, and pour in rice like they're topping off a sandbox. The final result? A stew capable of ending treaties in a pot of rice that should require a waiver to approach. This isn't cooking, it's mythology with food poisoning. Ah, yes. The street-side nuclear sandwich, engineered with the precision of someone who once saw a burger on TV and said, "Yeah, I can recreate that with chaos and butter." It starts innocently enough, soft buns laid out like a production line in a factory that has never passed a single inspection. Then, boom, a ladle of green sludge is dropped on each bun, spreading like alien moss. Before your brain recovers, he follows it with an orange sauce that looks like it was siphoned from a traffic cone. Next comes the cheese, or something pretending to be cheese. He slices it with the enthusiasm of a man cutting insulation foam, slapping each cube directly onto a tomato slice as if assembling a science project. Then the main event arrives, the red meat mud meteor. He scoops a blazing orange mound of mystery mash, slaps it on the grill, and mashes it into submission until it resembles volcanic clay. This gets smeared onto the buns like he's resurfacing a driveway. Onions are thrown on top with bare-handed aggression, forming what can only be described as a crunchy crown of regret. And finally, the sandwich is sent to its doom, a buttery death pit where it's fried until the bun becomes a sponge of molten grease and despair. He stacks them up proudly, like tiny cholesterol monuments. Once served, each one looks like a burnt lasagna layered inside a hockey puck, proudly dripping with oil older than democracy. A true masterpiece of street gastronomy, the kind of food that doesn't just challenge your stomach, it challenges your life choices.
He's out. Too clean for me! Too clean for me! Ah, that's better!
The yellow hat gleams like a holy relic, its wearer anointed with the same golden streak across his brow, as though turmeric itself had staged a coup against fashion and won. He hoists a block of cake, not as food, but as geological evidence, an edible boulder, pressed and compacted by the weight of centuries, promising sweetness only to those with teeth carved from granite. Around him, the earth itself offers delicacies. The asphalt, still sweating from the day's heat, gives birth to a harvest of shimmering pearls. Road caviar, jewel-like, extracted with reverence from the city's blackened arteries. To taste it is to embrace both opulence and exhaust fumes. Luxury spooned straight from the veins of civilization. The beverages arrive to the tune of hammer and anvil. Each stir is an act of aggression, each pour a declaration of war on subtlety. The air vibrates with the clang of industry, as though a medieval forge had mistaken coconuts for iron. Poor fruits are flung onto the block, split, hacked, and tortured under machetes that swing with all the grace of an executioner at dawn. A hand arcs blindly, blades slicing perilously close to their owner's flesh, as if protein were an optional garnish drawn from fate itself. The milk that seeps out is not poured but surrendered, trickling like the confession of a broken prisoner. And then in the shadows, the cauldron. Covered, brooding, it waits like an oracle with no mercy. Into its depths are hurled fragments stolen from every corner, noodles gasping for relevance, sauces discarded like political promises, meats of uncertain lineage. The liquid within swallows all, churning into a darkness so complete it could swallow the sun, thicker than midnight, blacker than a goat's hoof dipped in tar, a potion whispered into being by hunger and madness alike. The finale crashes down upon dumplings, once delicate, now sacrificial lambs. They are torn, crushed, bathed under waves of sauces whose colors defy nature and whose textures evoke geological accidents. Each spoonful paints them in shades of disaster, until the plate resembles a battlefield where flavors and dignity have both been slaughtered. The crowd looks on, half horrified, half entranced, as the dish collapses under its own chaos, an edible apocalypse that laughs in the face of refinement. This is not dining. This is not even cooking. It is a carnival of ruin, a Friday feast for those who crave not nourishment, but the thrill of surviving the very idea of food. Behold the majestic lavatory broth, a delicacy unmatched in history. This isn't just food, it's a symphony of mop-borne essence and manhole-aged aromas, blended with such care and refinement that only the bravest taste buds dare interpret it. From this day forward, abandon the crude phrase, "I'm going to the bathroom." Instead, elevate your social standing. Announce with poise, "I'm off to craft a stew." Such words will leave audiences bewildered, perhaps horrified, yet undeniably captivated by the grandeur of your culinary ambition. Truly a gourmet declaration fit for only the most distinguished of palates. If Michelin ever dared to expand into the post-apocalyptic dining scene, this video would be the poster child. What begins as a seemingly ordinary street stew quickly escalates into a culinary fever dream. The chef, armed not with a ladle but with yesterday's mop, plunges straight into the pot. Within seconds, the stew doesn't just absorb the mop fibers, it embraces them, dissolving bristles in what can only be described as a passionate tango of grease and chemistry. The result? A broth so potent it doesn't just sterilize, it baptizes. Forget farm to table, this is janitor's closet to stomach. 5 stars for creativity, 0 stars for gastrointestinal survivability. A masterpiece of urban gastronomy you'll never forget, and your intestines never forgive. Just when you think the mop-infused stew has reached its final evolutionary stage, the chefs unveil Phase 2. With the grace of medieval alchemists and the hygiene standards of a dumpster fire, they decant the bubbling potion onto a glowing manhole cover, which doubles as both grill and urban sacrificial altar. Here the stew mingles joyfully with centuries of city runoff, cigarette butts, and the faint perfume of hot asphalt. And then, the pièce de résistance, the serving platter arrives, a tray lovingly constructed from compressed rolls of recycled toilet paper. Truly eco-friendly in the sense that nothing on Earth could possibly survive long enough to harm the ecosystem after eating it. The final presentation is a vision of modern gastronomy, shimmering brown sludge, steaming atop manhole haute cuisine, delivered with the proud declaration of street-to-gut sustainability. A dining experience so bold it makes you wonder, is this food or an unlicensed chemical weapon? The meal ends with a bang, literally. Dessert is nothing less than an eco-friendly Indian Army hand grenade, stuffed with organic methane and marketed as sustainable flambe. The instructions? Light it, shove it in your mouth, and snuff out the explosion with your tongue before your skull decorates the wallpaper. It's Michelin meets Mission Impossible, a dining experience so unforgettable, mostly because you won't live to forget it. Welcome to the Roswell Fine Dining Experience, where the chef proudly presents his pièce de résistance, slabs of what can only be described as alien charcuterie, marinated in mystery and glowing a suspicious shade of red. Ask about the ingredients and the man immediately convulses with rage, as if you've questioned his intergalactic citizenship. Legend has it the meat arrives fresh from Area 51, vacuum-sealed in UFO exhaust fumes. The chef then enhances the flavor with a delicate dusting of imported sands, playground, beach, and occasionally cat litter, creating that signature crunch so adored by the brave and the reckless. For plating? Forget porcelain. Here, the cosmic delicacy is laid to rest on pages torn straight from his child's last school notebook, geometry homework transformed into haute cuisine. The result? A dish that is equal parts extraterrestrial, educational, and violently indigestible. Truly dining at its most otherworldly and most unsanitary. Behold the maestro of filth, a street chef whose hands are so black with dirt, they look forged from volcanic ash. His signature combo, a daring blend of spices, sauces, and, let's be polite, pubic excretions, all elegantly wrapped in a radioactive banana leaf straight from the Ganges. The highlight of the experience is not the food itself, but the delivery. The chef personally shoves the combo into your mouth with those cold, dark hands, each finger carrying the sediment of a lifetime spent dodging soap like it was a deadly disease. The result? A dining adventure so intimate, so unhygienic, it makes you question not just your taste buds, but your will to live. In the latest episode of Why Is This Even Legal?, we see a street food vendor in India transforming a giant manhole cover into his personal Michelin star griddle. First, he dramatically empties a bucket of brown paste onto the iron slab, a substance with both the texture and aesthetic of cow excrement, and, frankly, probably not far off in origin. With all the elegance of spreading manure on a field, he smooths the mixture across the cover as if sewage chic were the next big thing in gastronomy. To elevate the dish, he crowns it with vegetables nurtured in the gentle embrace of the Ganges banks, that magical place where spiritual purity meets chemical runoff. The grand finale. He serves this masterpiece on a tray that could have been salvaged from Guantanamo Bay's cafeteria. It's prison dining meets rustic street food, garnished with a side of hepatitis risk. This video is culinary terrorism disguised as tradition. It begins with a bold move, mixing actual dirt into dough. Yes, dirt. Why settle for whole grain when you can have whole ground? Our master chefs, barefoot, filthy, and fresh from a tetanus convention, then knead the mass directly on the floor. Hygiene? That's for amateurs. Real flavor is unlocked by toe fungus. Because nothing says fine dining like a potential dental reconstruction. With chunks of gravel lovingly folded in, the mixture is then fed into a machine that looks stolen from a French coal mine in 1823. The device receives the dough from the top and delivers it from below, In a performance so convincingly biological, you half expect the machine to ask for toilet paper. But the magic doesn't stop there. The dough, now resembling a cross between cement and digestive failure, is scooped up again from the ground, shaped into sad little balls, and left to dry in the sun. Translation: they're letting bacteria audition for dominance. This isn't cooking. This is a TED Talk hosted by Salmonella and Dysentery. This video is not street food. It's performance art from the seventh circle of hell. Our hero, an Indian street chef, begins by creating a potage with a daring palette, red powder, dirt, and something white that he clearly wants us to believe is Parmesan. Spoiler, it's not. It's more like the ashes of dairy that once dreamed of being cheese. Next, he blesses the mixture with a ladle of what can only be described as chamber pot water. Yes, eau de urinal, vintage, who cares? Poured straight in to bind the masterpiece. And for the grand finale, the pièce de résistance, he lifts the bucket and vomits the concoction onto a giant manhole cover. Not for taste, not for tradition, but purely for performance value. Because nothing says gourmet like sewage chic in a side of existential dread. This isn't cooking. This is abstract diarrhea art. Ah, yes. The pinnacle of fine dining, a plastic bottle of dish soap, lovingly squeezed into cauldrons that look like props salvaged from Andariel's catacombs in Diablo 2. Within, petroleum boils like Satan's fondue, and when the soap collides with the black sludge, the reaction is pure demonic sorcery, a foaming, hissing birth of a solid disc that looks like the Antichrist communion wafer. But why stop at chemical warfare? The pièce de résistance arrives with the infamous handwich technique. No knife, no spoon, no tool forged by man. Only hands so filthy they could start a new plague. The cream is scooped, squashed, and smeared like diarrhea finger paint across the cursed disc. Each smear a love letter to hepatitis. And then, the atmosphere comes alive. Swarms of flies, buzzing in divine ecstasy, swirling like Michelin inspectors of decay. Extra protein? Of course. But only if you pay the premium fly tax. This isn't food. This is biological warfare served a la carte.
Dad, I have a confession. I took a shower yesterday.
Raj, are you kidding me? Get out of this house!
Welcome thrill seekers and reckless beverage enthusiasts. Forget boring clean drinks. Grandpa Joe's authentic cane. Sugar juice is here to challenge your immune system and common sense. While others use sterile factories, Grandpa Joe trusts his antique, grease-coated machine, a contraption so old it might have fought in a war. The rust, extra minerals, the grime, flavor enhancers, the unsettling creaking, just history speaking. While others use sterile factories, Grandpa Joe trusts his antique, grease-coated machine, a contraption so old it might have fought in a war. The rust, extra minerals, the grime, flavor enhancers, the unsettling creaking, just history speaking. Each sip introduces you to bacteria so vintage they deserve a museum exhibit. If you survive, congratulations. You're now indestructible. If you like your beverages bold, unpredictable, and slightly dangerous, Grandpa Joe's got you covered. Just bring a strong stomach and Ah yes, the latest gem of India's street cuisine. A stall that looks less like a kitchen and more like a scene straight out of a prison documentary. The chef, a man who clearly sharpened his culinary skills somewhere between solitary confinement and mandatory group therapy, handles only one tool, a knife. Not for chopping, not for dicing, but for ritualistically stabbing his ingredients as if each one personally wronged him in another life. First victim, a tuber of uncertain ancestry, glowing faintly as though it had bathed too long in the Ganges, mutating generation after generation until it achieved its current state, radioactive chic. He stabs it repeatedly, then casually sprinkles on something that can only be described as seasoning known only to God and perhaps the local coroner. Next up, the red orb of mystery. Spoiler alert, it's a boiled egg. Judging by its hue, it wasn't boiled in water, but rather simmered gently in the core pool of the local nuclear power plant. With the dignity of a hangman, he slices it open, releasing a sulfurous bouquet that could strip paint from a wall. To balance the dish, if such a word can even be used, he tosses in a powder that any rational observer would identify as caustic soda. It's unclear whether this is intended to reduce acidity or simply to ensure Darwinism takes its course. And then, because murder is a habit hard to break, he finishes by mutilating a chili so infernal it could double as a medieval torture device. This final touch ensures that your digestive system will be filing a restraining order for weeks. Welcome back to the grand circus of Indian street dining, where culinary ambition meets apocalyptic chemistry. Today's vendor doesn't serve food. He conjures an alchemic brew straight out of a medieval dungeon, mixing equal parts despair, radiation, and bad life choices. Front and center, the star ingredient, a brown sphere with the exact color and charm of freshly excreted misfortune. He places it, slams it, onto a table so rusted and sinister, it looks like it was loaned directly from the props department of Saw 3. You can almost hear Jigsaw whispering, "Do you want to taste a game?" To liven things up, he adds 2 neat shots of what at first glance might pass for orange juice. Sadly, the viscosity gives it away. This isn't juice, it's tractor coolant siphoned from a Massey Ferguson on its last legs. Watching it ooze into the cup is less refreshing citrus and more hazardous waste spill. And then the final flourish, a splash of nail polish. Not subtle, not tasteful. No, this is the screaming neon shade chosen by a bargain basement courtesan on her 5th cigarette break. He drizzles it in as though granting the concoction a touch of glamour, but the effect is closer to a biohazard barrel with lipstick on it. The result? A beverage that belongs less in a menu and more in a war crimes tribunal. One sip is enough to guarantee an out-of-body experience, most likely because your soul has abandoned your body in protest. Welcome to the toilet buffet, where haute cuisine takes a swan dive into the sewer. The signature dish? A bubbling stew presented in a sparkling white toilet bowl, because nothing stimulates the appetite quite like ladling dinner from the same vessel that usually handles yesterday's mistakes. Michelin chefs use copper pots. This visionary uses plumbing fixtures. Truly groundbreaking. Step aside, Gordon Ramsay. Make way for the true street king of cuisine, the man who decided that stoves are overrated and that the finest grill in the world is an open manhole cover. Yes, nothing says bon appetit like frying burgers and eggs directly above the city's digestive system. The aroma, a delightful blend of beef, smog, and last week's sewage steam. The pièce de résistance, of course, is the oil. Not just any oil, this is ancestral oil, a thick, tar-like brew foaming orange and black, bubbling with the menace of Chernobyl's cooling pools. Legend has it the same oil was first poured when Indira Gandhi was still in office, and has since been topped up only by the tears of tourists and the runoff from nearby scooter engines. Locals whisper it has seasoned so many patties that it now qualifies as a UNESCO World Heritage marinade. Every bite of these sewer burgers is a gamble. Will it be juicy beef, crunchy egg, or just a mouthful of tetanus with notes of diesel? Either way, it's an experience no Michelin restaurant dares to offer. Death served hot, straight from the drain.
No, please. Take everything you want, but please, don't spray us with the deodorant.
In the lawless world of street food, the chef has cooked up a stew so texturally confusing, it feels like a dare. Some chunks resemble river stones, others a mysterious, spreadable paste, all floating in a broth that refuses to mix, like it's trying to flee the pot and start a new life elsewhere. But progress has been made. For the first time ever, the chef has used actual utensils, trading in his signature filthy hand scoops for a ladle. A bold leap for hygiene, a tragic loss for bacteria fans. He serves the final creation in clay pots of various sizes, sealed tighter than state secrets, not to preserve freshness, but to trap every last molecule of methane bubbling from the depths. It's not just a meal, it's a pressurized digestive gamble, proudly served with a side of suspense. Before we even get to the food, Let's take a moment to appreciate the crime scene decor. Right there, on the back wall of this fine establishment, we can see the permanent imprint of a motorcyclist immortalized in oil and regret. Rather than let a good accident go to waste, the chef, ever the opportunist, has clearly recycled the situation into today's burger special. But let's not get distracted. Today, the star of the show is not the mystery meat, but rather the legendary fried eggs. These eggs won't be cooked in just any oil. Oh no, that would be far too simple. Instead, they will be baptized in a sacred viscous liquid that has stood the test of time, possibly dating back to the Ottoman Empire itself. This oil has witnessed sultans rise and fall, empires crumble, and arteries clog. It has a deep, rich patina, a thickened consistency that suggests both historical significance and immediate health concerns. As the chef cracks the eggs into this tar-like abyss, they don't so much sizzle as they whisper their final prayers. The yolks, once full of life, now tremble in fear as they are slowly swallowed by centuries of unwashed grease. The smell? A delicate blend of burnt history, motor oil, and possible war crimes. Meanwhile, the motorcycle burger patties rest nearby, soaking up the ambiance and possibly the trauma of their origins. It's a perfect harmony of flavors. 1 part rubber, 1 part nostalgia, and a whole lot of questionable choices. Will you take a bite? Will you survive the experience? One thing is for certain, this is not just a meal, it's a rite of passage.